am the daughter of migrants. I was born in the United States, and education was always something that was really ingrained into me as kind of the way to upward mobility. My parents didn't have a college education, and for them, their ideal was that I be a doctor or an engineer. And even though I was an artistic young person, for me, art was about making visible what was invisible. As a Latina growing up in the United States, I didn't see positive representations of myself in the media. I mean, we still don't. 55 million Latinos in the United States, and you hardly see films about Latinos. We're hardly represented in the mainstream, even though we're a core part of the United States. And when I was growing up, this was the reality. So for me, art was about creating another way of seeing and to making visible what was happening in my community. And so because math and science was something that was very ingrained, I didn't really get to have the opportunity to go to art school. But when I got to the university and I realized I really wanted to be an artist, it was a turning point for me because I understood the power in art and the power in culture in influencing the way people think. So growing up in California, I also witnessed the beginning of the anti-immigrant era in the 90s. An era that continues today. And the messages around me were very anti-Latino. And so I got very involved in social justice, right? I got involved in work around food justice because I grew up in Oakland in the food desert. I got involved in migrant rights because my own family was an immigrant. I got involved in climate change because the majority of people who are affected by climate change in the United States and throughout the world are people of color, working class people of color. And after about 10 years of creating artwork about justice and peace and equality and really putting forward the stories of the most affected people who are affected by inequality, I grew really tired of being in a fighting stance. And what I mean by this is that often in social movements throughout the world, in the United States, here in Mexico, often when we're talking about climate change or we're talking about gender inequality, we're talking about economic inequality, the war on women, we are framing our narratives through our suffering. We are looking only at the pain we're experiencing. And there is great suffering happening throughout the world. I mean, right now, as you know, we are having a gun debate in the United States. In Mexico, there's a national debate on impunity, on state-inflicted violence. Same thing in the United States. We are witnessing the devastation of the planet. There is much suffering that we have to acknowledge and we have to change. However, I think that when we only define ourselves by the no, and when we define ourselves by what we're against, we are ultimately not embracing freedom and not embracing liberation, because we are not just reactive humans. We also have to remember that the power of art lies in being visionary, right? So what does the yes look like? I think that although many of us are, against injustice or against war or against climate devastation, what are we for? What does the world that you want look like? How does it feel? And how does it sound? And how do we create and promote narratives around that idea? And so around 2011, as I was doing a bunch of art and just going throughout the United States, especially advocating on migrant issues and on women's rights, I decided that it was time for me to come out of the closet. And so after 10 years, I came out about my abortion that I had when I was 21 years old. So this was something that I didn't say at the beginning, which is that when I was being raised in an immigrant family, as many of you who here understand Latino culture, and actually I would say global culture, is that we don't talk about sex. We don't talk about sex to young people. We only talk about sex through a pain-centric narrative. And so the messages that I got, which is probably the messages many of you got, was close your legs, don't get pregnant, don't give it up. Even though I was a student with the highest GPA in my high school, I got full ride to a prestigious university. I was the face of Latina success, youth success, right? Despite the fact that my parents did not have an education, I was able to go to the best universities in the country. But what was missing is a sense of empowerment. I did not have tools on how to have a relationship. I definitely did not know how to navigate the world of dating, and so you can imagine what it meant to go to a co-ed university and to finally feel free, but not have tools. And so I came out because in 2011, the country, the United States, was being swept by anti-abortion measures. In fact, there was over 1,000 measures that got introduced throughout the country. And Mexico is no different. You know, more than half of the states in Mexico still are restricting access to abortion. And I'm not here to tell you how to think about abortion. I'm here to tell my story. What happened is that thankfully I had access to help. And so when I came out, it was a very powerful thing. I had to come out to my parents, I had to come out to my community. I had to come out because our silence was costing political power. And you know, in the United States, 1 in 3 women have an abortion. 1 in 3. Okay, we are 1/3 of the population, and despite that, our silence and the shame and the stigma associated with our bodies keeps us in the closet. And so I decided that I didn't want to participate in that narrative anymore. And in thinking about what I'm for, right, and thinking about what is it that I really want, what is it, I don't just want to be against something. I don't want to perpetuate a culture of silence, because the culture of silence is exactly the reason why I got pregnant. A culture of silence where sex is kept in the shadows, and young people, mostly young women, do not have the tools they need. So I decided to go in an entirely different direction, really think about, well, what does the yes look like? And the yes to me looked something like this. And I'm going to translate this for everybody. This says pussy power, and in Spanish that's panocha power. But I thought to myself, you know, 1 in 5 young women at the university level is sexually assaulted. We live in a rape culture, in a global rape culture. We live in a world where human trafficking of women is among the most lucrative industries. Okay, 52% of the population is women, and we are still way behind on reproductive health. We can't just be what we're against. You know, throughout the world, there's a fight for birth control. Birth control is becoming an international issue, even in developed world like the United States, where you still have companies who are refusing to give birth control. You know what birth control? Birth control, we often say, well, we don't want to have a baby. This is why we need birth control. Well, what do you want? What is the yes? People use birth control in order to enjoy sex. Women use birth control in order to enjoy sex. And this is the thing we are not talking about. We are not focusing on the yes. We're not focusing on pleasure. And I believe that pleasure, embodied pleasure, is very core to building a better society. Because we live in a world where productivity is what guides our thinking, right? We use the frame of productivity to permit the extraction of fossil fuels. We use productivity to permit the exploitation of workers. The way we treat the earth is very similar to the way we treat women. We take, we take, we take. It's an extractive economy. In fact, many of you probably grew up in a culture that was so productivity-oriented that you get rewarded for being busy. You get rewarded for working all the time. And I think that we have to question that. I think that pleasure is where we have to center our lives, because pleasure allows us to center joy and to really feel embodied. And so as I began to do more and more thinking about what it is that I wanted to promote, I really wanted to promote feeling good, because you know what, I don't have children, but I work with a lot of young people. And what I really want for young people, what I want for all of you, especially for girls and women, because you know what, now the reality is that young people are having sex at younger and younger ages. And what we should wish for them is to have great sex, to have sex that they can negotiate, to have sex where they have the tools to ask for what they want. If we continue to keep sex in the shadows, we will continue to have things festering. You have problems like rape, problems where most people don't even know how to advocate or negotiate their boundaries. And so I went around the country and really beginning to understand the cultural messages that are around us, you know. And it's not that pleasure isn't promoted. It's that male pleasure is held up as the ideal throughout our culture. You see it in advertisements, you see it in romance, Women are the ones to be pursued. If any young person wants to learn, you know, I want to please my partner, I want to learn how to engage with a woman, where do you go? Where do you go to learn that? There is no resources. Young people are not going to go, they might go look at porn. Do you think they're going to learn anything good? Are they going to learn how to connect, how to talk, how to negotiate, how to ask for what they want, move at a pace that feels comfortable to them? No, they're not. And the thing is that we don't have, even in sex education, you know, I remember my sex education very clearly. My sex education talked about this as a vagina. Okay, first of all, this is not a vagina. Vagina is one part of the vulva. Vagina is where something goes in and out, a baby comes out of. We talk about women's sexuality only in the context of reproduction. Don't get pregnant, close your legs. And you know what? Women are born with a clitoris. Clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings, twice as many as a penis. I didn't know that until I was in my 30s. Can you believe that? That's an American sex education for you. Okay, so the clitoris is the source of the female orgasm, and this is what I want to teach. This is the information that I want to give you, and I wanted to give it to all young people, because unless people have information, unless people are able to understand their bodies, we don't have power. How do we tap into our own pleasure and really feel embodied when the information given to us is completely incorrect, it's skewed, or it's based on shame and stigma, or duty? Because women always, the way we're taught around sex is in the context of duty. So I invite you to think about, how do you center your pleasure? That pleasure is actually a pathway to freedom. When we are able to be embodied and in touch with ourselves and to really feel, we are able to feel the natural world and the universe around us. It actually makes us more empathetic. Did you know that when people have orgasms, and especially when women have orgasms, that our confidence level goes up? We have things that go into our brains, our empathy levels go up. Endorphins, the creation of endorphins leads to more empathy. Okay, and so I believe that we have to move away from a culture of silence and a culture of stigma. And also really understand that the opposite of sexual assault, the opposite of rape, the opposite of the objectification of women, especially, is the full embracing and celebration of pussy power. Because again, our culture, you know what our culture says about pussies? That they're dirty, they're dark, they bleed. Get away from those PMSers. If you are of a certain age, you can't feel anything, right? Your desire is removed. Those are all lies. Those are all things to continue to keep us disempowered. We are in an age of global inequality. We are in an age where every single industry from math, science, laws, the global bank, global economies, education, the arts, every single sector is dominated by men. Okay? Unless we have women's leadership, we are not going to solve the most urgent problems of the world. And women's leadership is going to begin with our full embodied power. So I invite you to take back your body, reclaim your pleasure, and reclaim your power. Thank you.